You. Forget everything you know. You are now an anxious CEO of a failing game publisher who needs a game to come out in tandem with the new Disney movie Frozen. Your superiors have given you a grand total of 3 minutes to create this game and shove it out on whatever console will take you. What do you do? Well, obviously you make a really bad 2D platformer starring the plucky snowman sidekick Olaf. Unfortunately, this game doesn't do very well, but that doesn't matter because you now have 5 minutes to make a new game. Okay, you can remember your life again, but living in the shoes of a developer like this kinda sucks, right? Well, that's part of the reason why these games aren't really made like that anymore. Does that mean games nowadays are free of crunch? No. Movie tie-in games are direct adaptations of movies in video game form, so things like the new Harry Potter or Spider-Man games don't count. These types of games are an endangered species now when it comes to modern gaming. Back in its heyday, it was a titan on store shelves. Every kid had one movie tie-in game that they loved, even though it was a crappy collectathon adaptation of American Psycho. But now it feels like a rarity to see something like Space Jam: A New Legacy, the video game, on store shelves. What are the factors that killed this once beloved addition to a child's game collection? And once we acquire that knowledge, we'll create the perfect movie tie-in game that will revive this genre. I already touched on the first reason these games don't exist anymore. It's crunch. For as long as video games have been made, crunch has been there. Overworked and underpaid developers being given way too little time to create the game that they're making. Movie tie-in games are really bad for this because how the development timelines line up. Movies take roughly 4 years to be made depending on the technical difficulties behind the scenes. And a video game can only be made once the script is done, so they have about 2 to 3 of those 4 years to make a substantial game. And sometimes they aren't even given a script at all and just have to wing it, which gives us like weird games that don't follow the story and kind of just turn into fan fiction. For the most part, this is a widely negative experience, except for a couple cases where the game ends up being weirdly good. But all these factors push these games to the side as the lesser art form. This is the primary reason that crunch is such a problem in these games. The game is treated really poorly and the studio can't do anything but listen to the big movie that takes priority. It's a parasitic relationship that will tank studios as their morale sinks after they do millions of soulless adaptations. Next up is the accomplice to this crime. The cell phone. Yes, like Abe Simpson, I am campaigning against big smartphone with my massive platform. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Phones, tablets, and other variations on the mobile device helped kill the movie tie-in game by being a simpler platform as well as providing easy money. You see, as time has gone on, gamers have built up an immunity to crappy games. They simply won't do as well because the internet has provided an easy access for people to bash a bad game. Movie tie-in games were already hurt as the PS3 and Xbox 360 era came to a close, and movie studios began to notice this and became apprehensive towards spending the money to make another movie tie-in game. So, the smartphone became really compelling. A game could be made for cheaper, and the mobile audience has already been accustomed to emptying their wallets on microtransactions. So a studio making Minion Rush will end up doing better than someone trying to make Despicable Me the platformer. Even if a studio wanted to adapt the massive success of something like the MCU, they suddenly now have a lot to compete against with the flood of superhero games, good and bad, that have come out as a result of the superhero boom that the MCU caused. And because some of these superhero games have done really well, movie studios aren't going to give away the Spider-Man rights willy-nilly unless you're making a mobile game, because a console game is expensive and isn't guaranteed to do well. So, poor game developers are being crunched into oblivion and also losing their work to the likes of Disney's Coloring World for iOS and Android. And the final nail in this unfortunate coffin is the death of movie tie-in game's brother-in-arms, the physical release. Back in the day, the movie tie-in game was the apex predator of the games aisle. Whether it be a Best Buy or a Blockbuster, no parent nor grandparent could resist picking up a game based on a movie that their child liked. So many children were introduced to video games by playing something like Ratatouille for the PS3. But nowadays, most children will just buy a game online. The same grandmas have now evolved to buy eShop gift cards to let their child spend it on Fortnite and buy some horror movie icon they don't recognize. The only way they'll find something like a movie adaptation is by looking it up. And that, in and of itself, is a real big challenge because of the aforementioned phones and lack of movie tie-in games. The impending death of physical media is kind of terrifying, and it also plants the flowers next to the grave of the long-dead game genre we all grew up with and loved. But like Dr. Victor Frankenstein, I'm going to ignore all the points against my dream. I'm going to bring these games back to life by imagining these problems just simply don't exist. My ignorant bliss will create the perfect movie tie-in game. First, we take the IP from a popular movie. Let's say something like Moana, because Disney is normally a safe pick for these types of things. Next, we give it years of development by happy developers who love doing what they're doing. Toss in a taste of modern gaming and boom! We have a polished 3D action-adventure game, Moana, for the PS5 and Xbox Series X, just in time for Christmas. This open-world game is loved by all. It gets great reviews. People pick me up and carry me through the streets chanting, "Tyler, Tyler, Tyler, Tyler." But, unfortunately, that's just not how these games are made. In reality, the real appeal of movie tie-in games is the roughness around their edges. They have to be good while also having their unique quirks that only this small genre applies to them. Like bad graphics, a story that strays so much further from the plot than you'd expect, and an ending that sets up a sequel in a direction far different than what the movie was going for. And with all those factors, it somehow has to be good. That's what makes the likes of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, X-Men Origins Wolverine, or GoldenEye 007 so good. They were little scamps that were fun to root for when put up against big AAA titles like Last of Us or Super Mario 64. I don't know if that's technically considered AAA, but still, you get what I'm saying. So realistically, this Moana game would be weird. The story would revolve around Moana wanting to escape the island because it's being invaded by shadow creatures that look right out of Kingdom Hearts. Then Maui would just randomly show up and save her life and explain that she's the key to save the world from this blight. Along the way, they discover many friends, and for whatever reason, Moana has the power to summon her animals to give her fancy powers. And the cherry on top would be the weirdly in-depth boating mechanics that would feel like a combination between Wind Waker and Sea of Thieves. Above all, it would be released as a last-ditch effort by a studio on their final legs as their visual novel / action-adventure platformer version of Marriage Story fell through. And the developers? Are they able to maintain a healthy life and spend time with their family? No. They've been working 22-hour days for the past 3 years. Many have quit after mental breakdowns, and one will now only speak in various code tongues. It was hell. But hey, the 10 kids that picked up Moana for the PS5 really did like it. So, maybe the death of movie tie-in games was a good thing. For as much as I'll mourn something like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for PC, or really any tie-in game that actually had some heart put behind it, it also means that kids can now grow up getting actual real Spider-Man 2 and not some movie tie-in version of Spider-Man Far From Home.